Himari wasn't joking when she said she wasn't giving up on Sato, because the very next day she gives him a homemade lunch at school. She heard that Sato really likes steak, so that's what she made for him. However, Sato declines because he already brought his own lunch. She still insists that he at least try some of the lunch she made because she worked really hard on it, and the rest of Sato's classmates end up pressuring him into it. So Sato says he will take a bite. Himari is happy that Sato agreed to eat her lunch, so she feeds him a piece. After taking the first bite, Sato realizes that the steak she made is actually delicious, so he continues eating it. Akane gets upset that Sato is enjoying Himari's food so much, and even though Himari doesn't understand why Akane would be jealous, she tries to make her feel better by feeding her as well, and Akane gets embarrassed. Later on in the day, Himari approaches Sato again and tells him she has been having a hard time with math class recently, so she was hoping he would tutor her. Sato doesn't see a reason, so he agrees to help her study. But then Himari suggests that the two of them can study at her place and her parents won't be home, so it will just be the two of them. Sato tells her to quit joking around since that sounds a lot like a date to him. But that's exactly what Himari was going for after all. She made it very clear that she was going to keep flirting with Sato until he falls in love with her. However, Akane won't stand for this. She could let Himari feeding Sato slide, but there's no way she's letting Sato spend that much alone time at Himari's place. Akane is now even more against letting Himari have alone time with Sato, so as a compromise, Himari suggests that Akane joins the tutoring session as well. After all, if the two smartest people in class tutor her, then she might be able to get third place on the next exam. Shizu suddenly materializes after hearing someone threaten her spot on the class rankings, and since Shizu is the third smartest person in class, Himari suggests that all four of them should have a study session together, and they might as well have it at Akane's house, since there's a lot of them now. Akane once again erases all evidence that Sato lies in the house as well, and once they all get seated, Sato asks Himari what part of the math course she doesn't understand, but Himari says she doesn't understand any of it. Sato rephrases the question and asks her when she first started struggling to understand math class, but it's all been kind of fuzzy for her ever since they started adding letters in math. Akane points out that Himari's grades first started dropping during their first year of high school, and since Sato finally knows where to start, he begins tutoring her, and after a few minutes, Himari is able to solve the math problems on her own. Himari tells Sato he is really good at teaching and asks him to continue, but she gets really close to his face, so Sato tells her to back away because it's embarrassing to be this close, and it's making Akane really mad. The next moment, Shizu clings onto Sato and says she is bored, so Sato suggests they all take a break and play a game or something. But instead of just picking something like Mario Kart, Akane pulls out a card memory game, intent on proving that she is smarter than Sato. But in the end, Sato absolutely demolishes all of them because his memory is really good. He doesn't want to keep playing, so he tells them they can continue without him because he's going out to get some snacks. But while he's out, Akane catches up to him because she can tell Sato is feeling a little down. She starts a conversation by saying she had no idea his memory was so good. But Sato doesn't like to bring it up because people constantly call him creepy for it, making people think he is a stalker or something. She tells Sato that his memory isn't creepy at all, and in fact, she would love to have an ability like that since she wouldn't have to study so much. The two eventually return home after buying the snacks, but to their horror, when they get back, they find Himari and Shizu playing video games on Sato's console. So Akane has to make up an excuse for why it's there, and Sato asks Akane why she didn't hide away earlier. Anyway, they all sit down to have some snacks, and Himari thanks Sato for his help since she feels like she understands math a lot better now. Sato says tutoring her was fun for him since Himari catches on quickly, so he'd be happy to help if she ever needs tutoring in the future. Himari is happy to hear that because she was actually hoping she could have another study session with him, and maybe next time they could do it at his house instead. Sato chokes up at this a little since this is technically his house, so he tells her she can't come over. Himari thinks it's cute how flustered Sato is, so she tries getting closer to him, but in the process, she accidentally knocks over her cup of tea and stains her shirt. Sato instinctively runs over to the drawers to get a towel for Himari to dry her shirt, and Himari is grateful, but she asks how Sato knew where the towels were. Sato tries explaining it away by saying he just guessed, and Himari doesn't question it since Sato is really smart. Anyway, she needs to go take care of the stain on her shirt, so Shizy leads her to the bathroom, and while she's gone, Akane gets upset with Sato and tells him this is all his fault for agreeing to tutor Himari. Sato says there's nothing wrong with helping a friend study, but Akane is jealous because Sato has never offered to help her study before. However, that's straight up false because Sato clearly remembers trying to help Akane study once and she yelled at him for it. Akane says she only did that because she was too ashamed to accept help from her arch nemesis. Just then, the lights in the house go out and Akane is deathly scared of the dark, so she clings onto Sato. He tells her it's just a power outage, so he wants to go check the breaker box, but Akane doesn't want to be left alone. She suddenly apologizes for being so stubborn all the time, but Sato tells her she's fine the way she is. Sure, she can be a bit annoying at times and has trouble expressing herself, but overall, he is starting to understand that she doesn't mean any harm by it, so he doesn't mind if she acts a little selfish on occasion. Just then, the lights come back on and Himari and Shizu come back into the living room, but Himari spots Akane holding on to Sato, and she thinks it's nice that the two of them are getting along. The next day, Sato is talking to Shizu at school because he couldn't figure out what caused the power outage yesterday. So he asks her if she had anything to do with it, but Shizu's hands are clean. Just then, Himari comes up to Sato and asks him if he can tutor her again today, and Sato agrees, so Himari invites Akane as well. However, Akane says she doesn't want to join this time because she has nothing to learn from someone like Sato. But after Himari leaves, she goes up to Sato and asks him to please help her study when they get home. That night, Sato teaches Akane a good method to memorize things, and it works really well for her, so she thanks him for sharing his study methods. But this isn't really Sato's method in the first place. He has never had to study, but he came up with a couple study methods as an experiment and tried them out with different people to see how it would work. Although Akane is the first one to memorize things so easily with it, so it must be because she's naturally smart. With that said, Sato thinks they've studied enough for one night, so he wants to call it a day, but Akane wants to keep studying till morning. Sato knows she is studying to become a doctor, but he still doesn't understand why becoming a doctor is so important to her. She tells him it's none of his business and Sato admits that she's right, but he still wants to know about Akane's motivations regardless. Since Sato wants to know more about her, Akane agrees to tell him and begins explaining that she had a little sister who was very sick. Her sister could hardly get out of bed, and Akane's parents had to work day in and day out to cover her hospital bills, so they were never around much. Akane's sister would constantly cry out in pain, but all Akane could do was pat her head and watch her suffer until the day she eventually died. She couldn't save her sister back then, but there are other people out there just like her who are suffering right now, so Akane wants to do everything she can to save those people. Sato is glad Akane opened up to him, but since she told him about her late sister, she's been feeling gloomy ever since. Sato doesn't know what to do about it, so he goes to Shizu to ask her for advice on the matter. After telling Shizu about the situation, she thinks about it for a second and tells him that Akane would probably feel better if she got to do something fun with Sato, like shopping. Sato says he goes shopping with Akane all the time. That's not the kind of shopping Shizu was talking about. Even though Akane probably won't admit it, Shizu figured out that she's into a lot of girly stuff, so inviting her to go shopping for sweets or something stylish would be more appropriate. That same day, Sato goes up to Akane while she's making dinner and asks her if she wants to go out with him on their next day off. Akane is so shocked that she accidentally burns the food, But she agrees to the date with Sato, and the next day, she goes to talk to her grandma about it. Her grandma is so excited that Sato and Akane are finally getting along that she could die with no regrets right now. But before that, she has to prepare Akane for the date. So she brings her to a hidden closet full of clothes she had been gathering for the day Akane falls in love. But Akane denies being in love with Sato. The day of the date finally arrives, and when Sato sees Akane, he is stunned for a moment because she looks really lovely in that dress. They head out into town and Sato suggests that they go to a cat cafe first since he knows how much Akane loves kitties, but Akane immediately says they can't go there. She's come here before, and let's just say she went a little overboard, so she's banned from that cafe for life, but she still really wants to go in. Sato takes Akane to a karaoke room. Akane picks out a song for them to sing, and they actually have a lot of fun singing together, and afterwards, Sato takes her to a lemonade store that he thinks she'll like. Akane gets a strawberry lemonade, and Sato was right because she really does love it. She has had a lot of fun today, but she's curious why Sato asked her out in the first place since he always does things for a reason. Sato admits that he was trying to make her feel better because he made her remember some painful memories, and Akane is surprised since that was awfully considerate of him. In return, she says Sato can pick a place he wants to go to next, and she'll tag along with him. But she soon regrets those words because Sato takes her to a supplement store. As soon as they walk in, a big buff dude offers Sato a platter of supplements, and he immediately starts scarfing down as many as he can, and he looks like he's really enjoying himself. He and Akane start walking home, but along the way, Akane spots a ring that she really likes in one of the shops. Sato tells her she should get it for herself if she really likes it that much, and Akane wants to, but it's too expensive for her to afford. Sato takes a look at the price, and it really is expensive. But Akane says she'll just have to wait until she starts working, and can afford to buy it for herself. Although by then someone else would probably have bought the ring. They continue walking home, and Akane thanks Sato for asking her out today because she really does feel a lot better.